What's up, everybody? Good to have you guys tonight. This is part 2 of policies and procedures that can help us minimize and stop police brutality. 11 policies and procedures that would change police brutalities. And so what I'd like to do is quickly go over the first 6 and then hit the last 5. And we added another one at the recommendation of some people who are listening in. And as always, the Subversive Institute is an organization by the people for the people, originally and strategically focused on the mayhem that is known as Baltimore. And by the way, I know a lot of you guys are joining me tonight in Baltimore, and I know that those of us who live in Baltimore and live in cities like Baltimore realize that the pandemic and the social justice movement happening around the deaths of people like George Floyd, they haven't stopped any of all the issues that are going on in Baltimore. We're still on pace to break last year's murder rate. We still have dysfunction in our education system, our justice system. We still have unequal opportunities for employment. We obviously have challenges with our police department. We've got it all. And we just voted in a new mayor, and nothing's changed in Baltimore. It's still the same, and we still need all of those issues addressed if we're actually going to fix our city. And what we believe at the Subversive Institute is that change comes from the bottom. Change comes from you and I, the citizens. And we believe, according to the Declaration of Independence, that when any form of government hinders us from life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then it is our obligation to alter it or abolish it. Alter it or abolish it. That's the Declaration of Independence. And we believe it's a constitutional right to step in and do something about this. And so as citizens, we use all these tools. We use voting, we use protesting, we use petitions, we use running for office. We wrote a 10 things you can do to change things, and one of them is running for office. I mean, we do all those types of things, but the hope of the Subversive Institute is to put practical ideas, practical tools in your hands that you can run with. One of the great things that happened to me this week was someone actually sent me a letter that they wrote to the Baltimore City Council requesting the reallocation of funds towards issues that would help our city. And I was just thinking, what if like 6,000 people did that? You know, the thing that politicians fear, 2 things they fear: consensus and cash. So if you hit the city in money, which is why I'm a proponent of fiscal boycotts, strategic ones, intentional ones, and you get consensus, if you get enough people, they typically assume that a lot more people have these points of view. And so one of the things we're about is creating these mechanisms so that we, the citizens, can carry out this change, because we believe if we don't change it, it's not going to change. The systems and structures are not only set to promote racial injustices, but they're also set to promote just serious sociological dysfunctions that keep us stuck. And if we're going to change those things, we're going to change those things. All right, so I want to run through the list. Part 1, last time what we did is we went through these, and so they'll come up and scroll. 1, police chiefs should be approved by the communities they serve by at least a 2/3 vote during the election period of each community. So no more mayors electing, we elect them. Number 2, mandatory minimums for police officers who are arrested and tried convicted of 1st-degree murder, 30 years, 2nd-degree murder, 20 years, 3rd-degree murder, 10 years. That means no more posting bail and getting covered up by your union and all that type of stuff. Nope, you got a mandatory minimum. The judge doesn't have to weigh whether you're a good guy, bad guy. Boom, immediate justice. Number 3, mandatory minimums for officers who aid and abet in the murder of citizens. Yeah, so you can't watch your guy do something and claim, well, it wasn't me, he was a bad apple, doesn't represent all of us. No, if you were there and you aided and abetted, you're going to jail too, right? Number 4, police officers convicted of crimes will pay for their own legal costs from their pensions and their savings, as well as required to pay for legal fees, medical expenses, burial expenses, and make restitution to their victims. So we, the taxpayers, don't pay for their mistakes or their crimes. They pay, because if it was us, we'd have to pay. So they should have to pay. This is simple accountability. Number 5, police officers will be suspended without pay for 30 days if caught not wearing their body cameras and having them on. And a second violation is immediate termination of employment. You know, this is crazy. We shouldn't have departments that cameras don't work, don't have cameras, no cameras on the car. What is that? Police departments get millions and millions and millions of dollars. Well, how are we spending this money? If you're paying all these people overtime, like, what are we doing? This is 2020. There is no excuse for not having most things on video. This is just basic accountability. And number 6, police officers will undergo audits every year by an independent board, paid for by the police department, but elected by the voters in the community every election cycle. So this is an independent audit, all right, that needs to happen. Another form of accountability, and that would be something that we, the community, we would pick out people who are normal citizens who we think would make great on a review board. All right, now we're in the part 2. Number 7, the federal government should audit every police department in America every year. So you see the government, the federal government, playing this kind of seesaw with this, how much they're going to get involved, how much they're not going to get involved, how much they subsidize, how much they're not. Are they going to be pro-police? What are they going to do? It's like, look, this is part of the stewardship, we believe, of the federal government, to uphold the Constitution and try to ensure that states are abiding by that and that states and local communities aren't violating other citizens' rights. Now, if you think there's no precedent for this, well, there kind of is in history. You guys remember that little thing that happened in the 50s where there was a little trial, Supreme Court trial, to overthrow the illegal injunctions to keep black kids out of school, segregation, Jim Crow. Remember that little historical thing? That thing, and then they went to Supreme Court, Brown by the Board of Education, I think it was, yeah. And then they tried to take them to school, and the police department and National Guard was used to keep them from going to school, and the federal government said the state is wrong, and they sent in federal troops, right? So there's plenty of American precedent for this. And here's the thing I said before. We have this entity called the IRS, and they kind of follow up on us in regards to money, and they manage our money in the sense of making sure we pay our taxes, and then there's all these rules, and you can go to jail, and all this stuff. So we're simply saying, hey, y'all have a building for everything in the world in Washington, D.C. Why not build one big building to do this too? And I'm pretty sure, maybe some of you state rights guys, maybe some of you local people wouldn't, but I'm pretty sure most Americans would probably be down with their tax dollars paying for that, rather than some of this crazy stuff, right? Number 8. Prior to become a law enforcement officer, this is really important, every candidate will serve 1 year as a peace officer in the community they will be deployed in. And this position is designed to help the candidate build relationships with the community they will serve in and become acclimated with serving and resourcing the community prior to providing protection for this. Now, I know a lot of our pro-police and law enforcement officers are going to be like, what does this mean? Here's what this means. Before we give you a gun, you have to actually go in the community and be a citizen. You can have a badge, but you don't have a gun. And you don't have a taser, and you don't have handcuffs. You're a peace officer. You're just present. And you're learning the community, and you're building something called relational equity. So the community gets to trust you and to know you and to see what you're up to and to see what's going on. And then you get to know their needs and what's going on in their community, and you get kind of baptized in all of that. And you learn to connect the community with the necessary resources, and then you can come back to the police department and say, you know what, we need this, and we need that, and they need this, and this is a struggle, and here's an area where, and you become a liaison before we give you a gun and you go in there and actually bring the noise. You do that. Yeah, it's called a peace officer. I like that idea. A lot of times we try to do that with ride-arounds, but you know, a lot of academies are 6 months, 9 months. They vary in terms of how much time you spend in the community, and then you don't have to live in the community. So part of this us versus them is some people just injecting that, and it's not helpful, right? We talked about that a lot. And a lot of our other solutions, it's not helpful to create a us versus them mentality. No one's ever going to win out of that. It doesn't matter if you're right, you're not going to win. But one of the ways to break down the us versus them is how about letting them go and serve first. Then after a year, they earn some relational equity, some credibility. You give them a gun and a badge. The community might be more apt to trust them. No, that guy was here for us. He helped connect me to this resource, and he helped with this, and he helped with that. And we trust him. We like him. He's for us. Just an idea. Number 9. An annual community audit of the police department will be conducted by a board of 6 people who live in the community and are elected by the community to serve 3-year terms. So this is specifically for your community. This is something that we would subject the police department to. An annual community audit of the police department will be conducted by a board of 6 people. Now, communities vary in size and jurisdictions, and all those things would have to be worked out. But, you know, one of the things that happens is when the people with power and the people with the resources don't have accountability above them, then they're prone to abuse it. Do all people abuse it? No, but they are very prone to abuse it. We don't want that. So we want a lot of participation. And this is one way to get that participation. This would require some activity. Now, personally, there are a lot of people who would say all these things that we're suggesting in here about these community audits should be paid positions. They should not be paid positions. No. So you're not running for this. You can be a career auditor of the police department and make your $110,000 a year. No. You're just a citizen. You say, well, how's that going to work? You get 6 of you and you get down to business. Like, you don't mess around. You know, we pay people in Washington, senators, Congress to filibuster. You know what that even is? That means sometimes when they don't like what's going on or whatever, they actually read newspapers and articles and books. We're paying these people. That's utterly ridiculous. Nope. Volunteerism, citizens, they can earmark the time. We got time for all types of volunteer. We're all in this together. If you think the way out of this is to pay our way out of this, you're crazy. Never going to work. We can't put everybody in the city, everybody in our community on a payroll. We just can't do that. This is not going to work. All right. Number 10. All police officers will annually renew this vow publicly before the community they serve. Now, this will get us in trouble because it's truly subversive and different. I'm committed to making sure that the people I serve are always able to pursue and have life, liberty, and happiness, even if it requires that I lose my pursuit and possession of these things. So let's talk about this. So I think what's happened is, first of all, there are great concerns with the origins of the police department historically and nationally in America. If you do your research, great concerns about why it came about, when it came about, and who the police department was directed at. Now, one of the concerns that many of our African American brothers and sisters have is that when they look back in history, they see the police department militarized against the community. Way before people could quote black on black crime, drugs, blah, 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 under Jim Crow, when those statistics weren't what they are today, way before all that, the police department was pointed at us. The police department was a mechanism, an arm of the mayors, an arm of governors, an arm of the federal government. You don't believe me? You got to read your history. So when they tried to march across the bridge at Selma, who opposed them? It wasn't like Antifa. It wasn't the terrorists overseas. It was our own police departments, right? And wanted the right to vote. Like, who shot us? Who hung us? Who were members of the Klan and the police department? We have all this type of thing. And so what happened over time is this militarization. And then when you get in the 60s, the police department, the National Guard, was militarized to resist the black community from its constitutional rights. This is undeniable. I ain't gonna argue about this. In the 70s, when drugs mysteriously started appearing in these poor and people of color type communities, we don't grow them here, they came up in here. And then in the 80s, Reagan says, I want to do a war on drugs. Who or what was his army? He didn't call in the Marines, the Army, the Air Force, or the Navy. He was the police. In the 90s, there's a war on gangs. Who fought that? Notice the terminology, war. War? I think there should be a difference between a Marine and a police officer. I think. And so what's happened is this subtle, maybe not so subtle, militarizing of the police department and this us versus them. And I think both sides have contributed to this. So I ain't letting nobody off the hook. And so what's your point? Here's my point. During the whole COVID-19 pandemic, we didn't hear of massive amounts of doctors and nurses saying, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm not going to my emergency room. I'm not reporting for duty because I could die. My life is in danger. I feel my life is in danger. My life is in danger. No, most of them went in knowing their lives were in danger. And sadly, we lost some doctors and some nurses who were there to protect and serve. They're willing to put their lives on the line. Kind of like what we like to say about people in the military. They put their lives on the line. So we say that. Police officers every day in this country put their lives on the line. And I have no doubt about that. I'm getting at a mentality and an ethos, a culture. You say, what are you saying? I'm saying that police officers should be the community I serve are first and I'm second. Now here's what you're not going to like. What I'm saying is, do not become a police officer if you think, if there's a situation, I'm going home. Even if they don't. Don't be a cop. We don't need police officers like that. Are you saying that you're calling cops to be able to lay down their life? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Are you equating them with like doctors and COVID? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Are you saying that if there's a scenario that a cop can't defend himself? No, but I'm saying pulling your service revolver out over a speeding ticket is I'm going home and you're not. I'm saying some of the brutality that we've seen clearly on video represents a ethos, a culture in the militarized police department that says, I'm going home. So if I even smell that my life's in danger, I'm gonna let off on you. Like it was a threat. It's this us versus them. We've got the police officers thinking they're military. They're not military. They're supposed to protect and serve us. So here's the most egregious thing you're going to say. Actually, what should be happening, if anything, is no death should occur in an ideal world. But what should be happening is the fire department runs in buildings when they're on fire to try to save people, knowing full well they might get hit. They might die. All I'm saying with this vow, if we can run this again, renew the vow. Let me read it one more time. I am committed to making sure that the people I serve are always able to pursue and have life, liberty, and happiness, even if it requires that I lose my pursuit and possession of these things. And when I say that, I think they should do it publicly every year, and it should be a great celebration. By the way, some of you guys aren't going to like this because you guys are like, at the police and all these types of things. But I also believe in a company with this, consistent with this, many police departments have officers that are incredibly underpaid. They are. Some of you guys who are like, we shouldn't have a police department, that's great. Come up with a plan B. submit it and let's run with it, whatever. Some of you guys say they shouldn't be paid. We have volunteer police department, whatever. I'm saying that it goes both ways. So we're going to ask them to lay their lives on the line. Then I think we need to be able to have their backs. That's all I'm saying. But we should create that culture. Part of creating that culture is saying you need to be able to say this vow. You need to kind of be like Coast Guard, knowing that, you know what, they only get called when people are drowning. And they only get called when the sea is crazy. And they only get called when someone's probably going to die. That's all when they get called. And they know that if I go out there and try to save somebody, there's a chance I'm going to die. And I'm all in that. It's a culture. All right. Number 11. Police receive a minimum of 110 hours of training, amount they receive on firearms and self-defense. This is the amount they receive on firearms and self-defense in most cases, in de-escalation training and mental health interaction. So what we're saying is the amount of time that they receive in firearm training, they would get in mental health training and de-escalation. In addition, they must receive annual ongoing training of 10 hours a year. I got this from my friend Steve Cantor up in New York, this amount of training. So what we're saying is we want them fully equipped to deal with all the things they're going to deal with, because let's face it, they're first responders. And last time I checked, police officers, if they're good police officers, they don't get to choose who they protect and serve. They just show up. And if the person has a disability, if the person is this or that, they don't get to choose that. They've taken a vow that their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness comes first. And so we need to equip them more. They need to be the type of people who are ready to go and good to go. That's that. So number 12 is a bonus, okay? There's a bonus. And so if you guys are familiar with what's happening in Minnesota, one of the things that we see happening there is that the police department is pulling out. They're pulling out of the union. Okay, they're pulling out of the union. Now, a lot of us don't understand this, and I don't fully understand it. I've just started to do some research. But remember what we said. We said in order for racism or police brutality or injustices to exist and flourish, in order for racism, police brutality, or injustices to persist and thrive, they need systems and structures, right? You need a system and structure that will protect it and enable it. That's pretty clear. Well, police departments have those systems and structures that can be abused. Are they always abused? No, but they can be abused. So one of the quickest ways to do that is cut ties to the union. The police chief in New York, that's what he says. I mean, in Minneapolis says the contracts need to be restructured to provide more transparency and flexibility for true reform. That's what the chief said. Because, I mean, that's the whole point of the union, to protect the officers. And so they get the best lawyers. They get to negotiate the terms in which they're arrested and how they can be held and whether they're accountable in the same way. And what often ends up happening, you can look up this term, is that police officers end up with something called qualified immunity, which is why we, the citizens, get frustrated when they do something. We're like, how come what's happening to us doesn't happen to them? Because the unions are real smart and the unions are working hard to keep them out of the same scenarios as us. That's what they do. And so when they go to trial, who pays for their trial? They don't, we do. We change all that. So they have an extra level of kind of protection, an extra level of systems that is easy to be abused. We have to deal with that extra level of systems and structures to be abused, all right? So what's our motto? If you see something, do something. If you see something, say something. All significant sociological change for good comes from the bottom up. If we don't, they won't. If we don't, they won't. Nothing's going to change in Baltimore, and nothing's going to change in any other city unless the citizens get proactive. And before you start saying, what can we do? Don't overthink it. Write a letter to city council and encourage 10 of your friends to write a letter and do the math. Like if city council starts being bombarded with things like this, you say, well, I don't like all the stuff you guys are saying. Fine, as we always say, come up with your own and write. Like you don't have to wear our jersey. We're just embers trying to start a healthy fire that warms the city and the culture, not burns it down. We're trying to warm us up, right? Cold out there and all this injustice and all this racism and stuff. We're cold out there. We need some fires for the people. And so what we want you to do is, hey, come up with your own. If not, join ours. Now we have an action step, and you can see that action step on our website. And on there, we encourage you, even on these 11 policies and procedures, to go and affirm this statement. The statement says, I believe we need new policies and procedures for police departments in order to decrease police brutality. One of the things that you can do at the end of this is go to our Subversive page, click on the Solutions tab, click on the 11 policies and procedures, skim to the bottom, and click there to affirm this simple statement. I believe we need new policies and procedures, police department, in order to decrease police brutality. And so you can do that. And another action step, very practically, you can take is converting these types of solutions into petitions. You want something to do? Either copy and paste these, we don't care, copy and paste them. And again, see if you can get 100 people to sign this and then send it to City Hall. You've got to do something. You can't depend on these social saviors to save you. They can't. They're doing the best they can. They're out there protesting. They're out there leading. We've all got to do our part. You've got to do your part. If you see something, you do something. You go, that's just a little thing. Yeah, but if 1,000 people go to the site and click on it, it means something. If 1,000 people tell another 1,000 people, you start doing the math, all of a sudden, man, we've got a lot of people. We've got thousands of people agreeing and putting pressure on the mayor and the city council and the police chief that we need these changes. And then when they hear our voices, we get some change. So you see something, you do something. And if you see something, you say something. I want to thank you for joining us. And as always, we ask you to follow us at the Subversive Institute at Instagram, our Facebook page as well, our YouTube channel. Share all of this. Share it, share it, share it, share it. Share it on your pages, share it on your Instagram and your Twitter, and all those things. Share all those. And so thank you so much for joining us tonight. Grace and peace.